Don't waste a day. Don't waste a day.
No.
All the negativity and all the crap that goes on, push it aside, get out of bed, do something positive, and keep trucking.
Well, I think it's great that you're in the middle of treatment and you're here performing. I mean, that's...
Well, it doesn't stand in my way.
Well, that's what I mean. It's got...
I don't say, poor me, and sit down, and
Yeah.
And I put on the
When did you get the
packet
diagnosis, Leroy?
I got it, when was it? I don't even know. A few months ago. Actually, I was supposed to have had a colonoscopy back in December, and I was on my way to the hospital to have it done, and I got a call, and they said, do you have a clearance for your pacemaker? I said, you waited today to tell me? No, I don't have a clearance. Well, then we can't give you anesthesia. But she said, but you can have the colonoscopy without the anesthesia. And I said, honey, without a kiss or anesthesia, you're not going up there. So I said, that's it. So I stayed home, and then I blacked out because I was dehydrated, drinking all that stuff, and I fell down the stairs. And then they gave me an appointment much later, and then I did my act at 54 Below, and the next day I went to the bathroom, and Mount Vesuvius was coming out of my ass. And so they took me to the emergency ward and put me under the next day, the colonoscopy, and then the doctor, I come out of the anesthesia, he said, we did the colonoscopy, you have rectal cancer, and I have to go now.
Oh, my God.
Bingo. You go, well, there we go.
And
That's show business. And so then being in the hospital for those few days was just agony. And
of course, was that here in New York, or were you in Cincinnati?
In New York. New York at NYU Langone.
Sure.
And what's interesting to me is that I never understand that the nurses and the doctors and all that who live in New York, they don't go to the Broadway theater.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
really?
I go, how could? And then there was one gay nurse, male, and I said, how can you be gay and not go to the theater here in New York? What the hell's the matter with you? When I did my MRI and the CAT scan and all that, which I'm going to do on the 1st again, because I'm responding well, they're going to try to push things along. And this young doctor came. He looked like he was 12 years old. I said, you don't even look like you're old enough to vote. And he said, well, roll over and I'm going to grease you up. And I said, would you mind whispering in my ear, I love you, before you do it? I went right over his head. And then I go into the elevator because, they're manually operated there. Because, when people are ill, you got to get up and down. And there was a very black lady with bright red hair. And I'm being wheeled on in my bed. I looked at her and I said, a red-headed woman's going to love you, whether you're white, yellow, or black. She looked at me like I had 3 heads.
Yeah.
And I said, you've never heard that song? She said, no. I said, have you ever heard of Porgy and Bess? No. I said, have you ever heard of George Gershwin, Ira Gershwin? No. I said, get out your fucking phone.
Yeah.
And I wrote it down. I said, now you look at that. And by the 3rd time I was on the elevator, she finally saw it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lee Roy Reams.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Natty Cast. And now to your hosts, Tim Barker, Rex Stull, and Ron Thomas.
I was just helping a friend out on the Upper East Side. I had to pick him up. He was having a procedure done. And so and he's a fantastically talented Shakespearean actor. We met at Oregon Shakes, and he had finished the procedure, and the nurse was tending to him. And I said, is he going to be able to do a performance of Lear tomorrow? And she looked at me and she was like, huh? She's like, what's Lear? And I was like, King Lear. I was like, and she's like, well, he can't lift anything heavy. I was like, he's got to carry Cordelia. And they looked at me like I had 3 heads. I'm like, you're right. People are, we're losing them, Leroy.
I know. And, being in New York, because the wonderful thing about New York is I always say we have the best, we have the worst, but we have the best. Yeah. And sometimes we have to deal with the worst. But the one thing about New York, we have the Broadway theater. It's the reason why I was there. And the fact that in the old days, Broadway theater was part of being in a sophisticated world. You went to dinner parties, you talked about the shows. Regardless of what you did in real life, it was part of what you did as a New Yorker.
Yeah.
It was part of your... It's not that way anymore.
Yeah.
they now have television and videos and all of that. So the Broadway theater, and also it's expensive.
Ticket prices. I was just going to say. Leslie Odom Jr. is going back in Hamilton. Ticket prices are now $1,200, $1,500 a ticket.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's insane.
Now, the reason I get to see all the musicals that have dancing, I'm on the award committee of the Cheetah Rivera Awards, which used to be the Fred Astaire Awards. And so I'm a member of that, so I get invited to all the musicals with choreography, which are all the musicals. So I really get to see the shows.
Yeah.
And it's educational. Now, some of them are not necessarily to my taste, but at least I get to see them, and I'm thrilled that I have an understanding of what's going on. And like everything in life, things change.
Sure.
Music has changed.
Yep.
I watch the Grammys. I don't know any of those people or anything that they sing, and when they finish, I know why. It just doesn't appeal to me. And I grew up in the 50s when I should have loved Elvis Presley and all that stuff. I was listening to Ella Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
You know, there you go. And I said, it's not good taste or bad taste. It's your taste.
Let's begin at the beginning, if we will. Where was little Lee Roy born, grew up? What area in town? What let's talk about little Lee Roy.
Well, in Covington, Kentucky, which is the most northern point of the Mason-Dixon line. And if you ever read Uncle Tom's Cabin, when Eliza came across the ice of the Ohio River, she was going from Covington into Cincinnati, Ohio. And so that's it. And I, for some strange reason, I can't explain it, as a little boy, whenever music was on, I was in the middle of the floor singing and dancing.
That's awesome.
It was natural to me.
Yeah.
And I would get the kids in the neighborhood, and I'd get on our side porch and make them sit down and watch me get up and perform. And my mother read in the paper that if you sign your child up at the Jules Stein School of Dance, you got a free pair of tap shoes and a promise your kid would be in the recital. So God bless my mother. I wouldn't stop doing it, so she sent me to dancing school. And the sign outside said, Tap-toe Ballet, Acrobatic Baton Ballroom, Voice Personality and Culture.
So that was all taught
So
at
I went
Julie
to dancing
Stein.
school at the Jules Stein School of Dance, and my teacher was a young girl, because he didn't teach the young kids. The teenage girls taught the little kids. And my first performance was the Johnson Rag. And I wore a big white full-sleeve blouse with a big sash and a big floppy tie. And I remember it. And I loved it. And so at the end of that recital, Jules Stein hung himself. Yeah, he committed suicide. Had nothing to do with me.
Right.
Had nothing to do with me. And so down the alley from our home there in Covington, a young guy in the city, his name is Bob Ziegler, he opened a dance school. So I could walk to dance school, so my mother put me into that dance school. And then he got drafted and went into the war. And then his teacher, Alma Tranter, came in to run the school while he was in the service. And when she saw me in class, she told my mother, she said, I don't tell many of the mothers this, but Leroy's a natural. And he can make a living doing this. He's that good.
The NattyCast is proud to have the support of the National Alumni Association of the Cincinnati School for Creative and Performing Arts. I am a proud alumnus of SCPA, class of 1986, as are my co-hosts Rex and Ron. If you have listened to our past episodes, you will hear the stories of other alumni and faculty who have shared their amazing stories of how the school impacted their lives. The SCPA Alumni Association is looking to reconnect classmates from over the past 50 years and help to continue to find ways to improve educational opportunities for current SCPA students. From the Dare to Dream scholarships to simply spreading the word on class reunions, support for the association will go a long way in connecting the amazing community that is the SCPA family. Your annual membership fee of $40 will help support everything from the association's daily operations to alumni event programming. Membership dues for recent SCPA graduates are waived for the first 18 months. Visit us at scpaalumni.org to to become a member, donate, or find other ways to get involved. Please don't forget to check out the official store for all your SCPA merch. Again, that's scpaalumni.org. And remember, as we celebrate the me yet to come, in time, we will all be stars. And now, back to the show.
Were there a lot of boys, or was it mostly girls?
Yeah, there were a few, mostly girls.
Yeah.
A few boys, few. And she took me out of my age group and put me in the advanced class. And that was my first validation.
And
And
how old were you at that point then?
Oh, I was maybe about 8 years old,
Okay.
9 years old, in that area. And so anyway, she took an interest, and she told my mother she wanted to give me a solo in the recital. Well, we didn't have money to pay for private lessons. And she said, no, for him I don't pay. You don't have to pay. So she gave me that preferential treatment.
Wow.
But I knew I was good, and I knew what I wanted to do. And what's a good story, when Bob Ziegler came back from being in the war, then or being in the service, I don't think necessarily there's a war there, but then he put me back into my age group. So my mother took me out and sent me to another student teacher of Alma Tranders, Ellen Stanhope in Newport, Kentucky. And so I went into the class there, but I was the only boy in the class. And so Ellen Stanhope taught the hula one week. So what the hell? I paid for my lessons. I learned the hula, and I was good. Yeah. And so then they got a call from the Ludlow, Kentucky Stag Men's Club. No women. And they called and wanted a male entertainer. So they sent me down, and I did a little tap dance dressed up as a bum. And I sang a song, got an old slouch hat, got a roll on my shoulder, free as the breeze, I do as I please, bum, 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 just a bumming around. And then I went back and I thought it would be fun to get me into drag and do the hula. So my mother got me a long white fringe skirt. I got a brassiere and put white fringe on it. And she went to the Five and Dime and got a little black wiglet to put on me and comb my hair down with bangs and put girl face on me with lipstick and a big flower in my hair and a lei around my neck. And I was on. And I went out and did the hula. The men went crazy. They started throwing money at me. They were shoving dollar bills in my brassiere and in my hula skirt. I walked away that night. I was 10 years old by this time. And I made $52 that night. Doing
like
a drag hula.
$1,000 probably.
Down at the Ludlow, Kentucky Men's Club. And but my mother was so smart, she opened up a bank account for me at the First Federal Savings and Loan there on Main Street in Covington. And I got a little cowboy, it was like a trigger bank with Roy Rogers and a shade that went around and said, I've hitched my future to the savings post. And it had like a little bank on the side.
You mean like a gift that they give you when you open an account?
No, premium. And she opened a bank account for me.
Wow.
And then from that point on, all of the things that I did that made money, and then my second cousin, who was my dad's age, had a group of square dancers on the Midwestern Hayride in Cincinnati, and they were called Esther McNew and his Kentucky Briar Hoppers. And when he realized that I danced, we got a group of kids my age, and we became Esther McNew and his Junior Kentucky Briar Hoppers, and we appeared on the Midwestern Hayride, on the Indiana Hoedown in Indianapolis, and the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, Tennessee.
I was going to say, because these ended up going around the country.
And then we toured around for the fairs during the summer. Wow. And all those little $5 and $10 bills and the talent shows, my mother would put that in the bank, and that's the money that sent me to college.
Wow.
And of course, whenever they turned on the lights, I was out there singing and dancing. So I was just all over the place. And I never had a problem till I got into junior high. And I was popular at school. The girls loved me.
What school was this? Where were you going at this point?
John G. Carlisle in Covington, Kentucky. That was the junior high. And then Holmes High was, the big one.
Yep.
So I was in 8th grade. My sister was in the 9th. And I danced on one of her programs, and that was it. From that point on, the name-calling, the bullying, all of that happened, and it was tough.
It didn't start until you got into...
until they saw me dance.
At home, your mom seems very kind of supportive of...
My whole family.
Wow.
I just,
I'm not trying to, judge that.
No,
but it'd be unusual, right? To have...
And, I never thought a thing about it, but, it was the time then. And when I was in high school at Holmes High School, my junior year was the first time 2 black students were entered into the high school. They had their own school in Covington and lived in their own area. It was that segregated.
And how many siblings do you have?
I'm the youngest of 7.
Of 7.
My mother always said I have 3 boys, 3 girls, and Lee Roy.
And let me ask you this, Leroy. So is there a dancer for you at this time that you're like, I want to be like that, or that you
Absolutely. Gene Kelly.
Okay.
We have the same birthday, August 23rd. I love Gene Kelly. We're both Irish. And I wanted to be Gene Kelly. I loved Fred Astaire, too.
Sure.
But Gene Kelly was
He's
more
phenomenal.
athletic and sexier.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, no, I like Gene Kelly, and thank God I got to meet him when I was on 42nd Street in New York. He came backstage.
Wow.
And I went up to him, and first of all, he was much shorter than you think.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I'm a good 5'11", and if I just stand straight, I'm 6 feet tall. But he was shorter, and that was a surprise that he. And Fred was also. They were shorter, and so I said, Mr. Kelly, before I open my mouth, I'm going to apologize because I'm going to make a fool out of myself because you're my idol. I want to be you. We're both Irish. We have the same birthday. We sing, we dance, we act, we choreograph. I want to be you. You're my idol. And he said, well, kid, I'll tell you. You can certainly sing a hell of a lot better than Fred and I ever could. And that was my compliment. And I said, and we didn't have cameras then, backstage to take pictures. And I said, would you send me an autographed picture? And he did.
Oh, wow. That's
He
great.
did. And
Still have it?
of course I have it. And then years later I bought a big sheet of An American in Paris, which is, if I had to pick an MGM musical, that would be the one I'd pick because his work as a choreographer, and that was great. And I met Leslie Caron.
All right.
Wow.
And I brought it down, and she signed it for me, and we were photographed together.
Oh, that's great.
Wow.
And I just, coming full circle, I didn't get to meet Fred Astaire. I was in California doing 42nd Street. I had an address for him, and so I had some 8x10 pictures. And some of them were with Ginger Rogers, who, by the way, I worked with, and I knew Ginger Rogers, and I danced with her. I got a picture to prove it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so I sent the photographs to Fred's address, and I put in and said, would you please autograph that little, and they sent them back, but he didn't put to Leroy. He just signed his name for a secretary that who knows who did.
Right.
But then on the pictures that Ginger had signed to Leroy, he signed under of the two of them together.
Yeah.
So I have that. So I thought, oh, shit. Why didn't I, So then I resent them and I put a thing. I said, I'm so sorry. Could you please personalize? And the package was returned to me with a stamp that said, received, not opened, returned.
Wow.
So that was the end of my Fred Astaire story.
All right.
Oh, man.
But he was the best dancer of everybody in the world.
Yeah.
He just, not that there are people who could turn faster, turn longer, leap higher. Had nothing to do with it. It was his style and his musicality. The man was a genius. Mm-hmm. And he is the best dancer in all categories, period.
Well, I think sometimes, too, also translating it to film, right, was a gift as well, because I don't know that everybody could play to the cameras the way that he did as well.
And he was so smart because he said you have to see the full body dancing. You don't do close-ups or fancy shots, and you have to do longer sequences so they can see it.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't do clever cuts.
Right.
Yeah.
And brilliant. And that's why his stuff stands up there. It's art. Yeah. But, of course, the best tap dancer in the entire world was Eleanor Powell.
Okay.
I mean, my God, that woman was incredible. Now, I worked with Ann Miller. I danced with Ann Miller.
Wow.
And if you go on YouTube and you put on Happy Birthday Hollywood, Ann Miller, Shaking the Blues Away, you'll see me dancing with Don Correa, Hinton Battle, and Greg Burge, and Ann Miller. And Ann Miller and I were close friends.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
We socialized. She was entertained in my home. I can tell you some really dirty stories, but can I tell a dirty story?
You can tell any story you want here, yes, sir.
Okay, well, here's my favorite Ann Miller story. We had an incredible, I have a brownstone in New York, and I had an incredible New Year's Eve party. And everybody was there. Carol Channing, Dorothy Loudon, Jerry Orbach, Tammy Grimes, everybody. It was a big fancy party. We had waiters and everything. And Ann was there. And so the guys hadn't brought out some of the quiche. And she said, honey, you got too much food here. Put that back in the refrigerator, and because there's too much food here. And save that tomorrow night after the show. She was in Sugar Baby. She said, you come back and get me. I got the limo. And we'll go up and we'll eat that quiche tomorrow night. So I said, okay, Ann. So after my show, I ran up because we got out early, and I saw like the last 5 minutes of Sugar Babies. And I said, Ann, there's so much food. Why don't we get Jane Summer Hayes and Jerry Kansas, 2 girls in the show I knew, and we'll have a little party. So we piled in the limousine, and we're going through Central Park. Because back then you could go through the park to get the Upper West Side. Now it's closed off. They don't do that anymore. But we're going in, and we go around a horse and buggy. And Annie said, oh, my God, there's one of those horse and buggies. I was laid in one of those one night. I said, what? She said, honey, I was laid in one of those. Some man did it to me in the back of one of those going through Central Park. Can you imagine that? And Jane Summer Hayes said, Annie, was that one of your husbands? She said, you think I would marry a man that would do something like that? Oh, she was a card.
Yeah.
But, she was working when she was 12 years old, dancing in clubs. She would put on, makeup.
In New York?
Well, wherever she was out of Texas.
Okay.
And she danced around, and she supported her mother. And,
Wow.
She was working.
Yeah.
And then she was 14 years old, and her father doctored her birth certificate so she could sign with RKO.
Oh, because she wasn't old enough.
She was 14.
Wow.
But they had to pretend she was, 16 or whatever
yeah.
with the legal age. And that's why a lot of times people say she lied about her age. She did lie about her age, but only to work.
Right.
Sure.
And she was an incredible dancer. My God, the way she tap danced, incredible. And she was a wonderful human being.
I watched a
let me
YouTube
ask.
clip. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, no. So let me ask you this: so you're going back to your junior high school. You're graduating now, Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
You've been working since you were 10.
Yeah.
So I'm like, but then UC comes into play. Well, like, why not go straight to New York after you graduate high school? Like, tell us what's going on in the mind of Lee Roy there.
Well, I was a good student in school. I was an A-B student. And I was always in the upper, 5% of the class because education was important to me.
Okay.
And the University of Cincinnati had a theater arts major. And it was only across the river, and I couldn't have afforded to go to college, but I could commute from home.
Right.
So I applied as a theater arts major and was accepted.
Was that was before it was called the College Conservatory of Music, right? It was it.
The Natty Cast is supported by Mad Cheese. Mad Cheese is a completely plant-based, dairy-free cheese and charcuterie shop located in Madisonville. The owners, Cincinnati natives Heather and Reggie Donaldson, handcraft over 30 different plant-based cheeses and meats in their commercial production kitchen behind the storefront. You're invited to stop in and sample the wide array of products, book a curated tasting, or sign up for the new subscription box program, which will feature an exclusive new cheese every month with recipes and board building tutorials. For more, head to Instagram and Facebook at Mad Cheese Cincy or go to www.madcheese.com. And with that, back to the show.
No, the College Conservatory of Music was a separate school.
Separate, okay.
It was not part of the university.
Gotcha.
There used to be the College of Music and the Conservatory of Music, and then they merged and became the College Conservatory of Music.
Gotcha.
But the university had a theater arts major. Now, that summer when I graduated from Holmes High School, and God was I glad to get out of high school because of the razzing, but the girls were wonderful to me. And I was in charge my senior year of doing the variety show. So all those redneck hillbillies had to be nice to me if they wanted to be in the show. And the 2 black girls, I did the misogyny scene from Showboat and had one of the girls sing, "Can't Help Loving That Man of Mine." A left-wing kid in school, So I got with all those redneck hillbillies. But anyway, that summer, I was hired to dance with the Zoo Opera Ballet.
Okay.
Now, when I tell that story about the Zoo Opera Ballet, people scream and say, "What are you talking about? Opera in a zoo?"
Yeah, they used to have it up to the
Yeah,
zoo,
in the
right?
open air. I said it was a big fancy thing, and all the huge stars from the Met came there that summer. It was a big deal. Anna Moffo, Lisha Albanese, Jan Pierce, these incredible opera singers, and I was in the ballet. I was then 17, and I turned 18 that August. And in the corps de ballet was a little girl who was 14 going on 15, and her name was Susie Ficker. And we became buddies. And so she said, "Would you like to study ballet at my school at the College Conservatory of Music?" And I said, "I'd love to, but I don't have any money. I can't afford the lessons." She said, "Well, I can get you a scholarship." I said, "Well, how do you do that?" She said, "Well, Marion LaCour, who was our teacher, comes to the opera, and I'll tell her to look at you." And so Marion LaCour came back and said, "I'll give you a scholarship." Now, little did I know that they didn't have very many men in the ballet class, and someone had to lift those fat ballerinas. I said, I should have asked for a salary I could have gotten. So anyway, I had a scholarship then to pay for that, and then I studied voice at the College Conservatory of Music, which you had to be in the opera department. But I said, I just want to sing well, and I want to do musical theater. So but that's before the schools combined. So I was going to 2 schools at once. Okay. And but lucky for me, I had that. And my professor at the University of Cincinnati was Paul Rutledge, who became my mentor. And thank God I went to college because I grew up. And I had 4 years to concentrate on my education, but also getting experience. And they did mostly plays. They did 1 musical a year. And my first freshman year was South Pacific. And I auditioned for Lieutenant Cable, but it went to a senior, which it usually did. Right. Mm-hmm. And then that summer, Paul Rutledge had a summer stock company, and the guy who played Lieutenant Cable couldn't go. So I was the runner-up, so I got to do it in summer stock. And that's when Mr. Rutledge realized that, because they did a lot of strange plays like The Sign of Jonah and, Kraft's Last Tape, and I didn't know what the hell the things were until they did children's theater. And then he realized I could act. I said, only thing you did that I could understand. But then once the musicals happened, then the next year we did Guys and Dolls, which again, there wasn't a part for me. I could have played Adelaide. But they were the other part, but I could have played that really well. And
you really would have been a good Adelaide. Now
I would have been certainly
you
funny.
You developed a cold.
Oh yeah, a person can develop a cough. But anyway, I choreographed it, and then Paul Rutledge, my senior year, did more musicals.
Oh, and he had you choreograph it.
He had me direct, choreograph, plus play the lead.
Wow.
So that's when I really learned, and we were the first production of the Fantastics outside of New York City. Because Mr. Rutledge went there, saw the show, went backstage, and said, I'd like to do this at school, and they gave him the rights. So we were the first production of Fantastics at the University of Cincinnati. Wow. And we were a huge hit. We could have run that show in Cincinnati. People would line up at night to try to get tickets. It was but I owe that all to Paul Rutledge. And then at the end of my sophomore year, I went to do summer stock in Dayton, Ohio at the James Alex Summer Theater. And I got my equity card. And I danced with Rita Moreno, Jane Powell. Wow. I was in Kiss Me Kate with Patricia Morrison. It was just, Katherine Grayson did Rosalinda. And I was going to be in Wildcat with Martha Ray. But a big contralto ran over one day and jumped on my lap and bruised my testicles, and I had to leave. I had to walk out bow-legged. So that was the end of but I got my equity card. I walked funny for a while, but and it also gave me a high tenor voice, so I can't complain.
And so now you graduate in '64, and now you're like, Broadway, here I come. New York, here I come.
Well, I couldn't because I didn't have any money.
Okay.
So I had to become a substitute English teacher in junior high for 3 months.
Okay.
And I
Back at Carlisle?
Well, no, I didn't. I was in Covington and Cincinnati.
Okay.
And I went to,
You
teach
just
every
signed
day.
up for substitution. They tell you what school to go
Well,
to.
you see, if you sign a contract, you had to play for the year. But I knew as soon as I got the money. So a substitute teacher, you
just
didn't
bounce
have,
around to whoever's
Yeah.
that day.
So, but I was out every day teaching, and I liked it actually, and I was a good teacher because I could entertain the kids.
I was going to say you keep them entertained because
Well, what I used to do, I used to preach to the kids. I would say, now, let me tell you something about. It cost me a lot of money to go to school to get my teaching degree, and your parents pay my salary, but you don't have to pay it. It's free. But I have a lot that I can tell you, and it's not going to cost you a penny. And if you listen to me, I can change your life. Wow. And your parents are paying for this, so don't be a fool. Take advantage. And if you listen to what I have to tell you, and you educate yourself, you can change your life. And I would do that to the kids, and they would
grab their attention.
They were responsive to me.
Wow.
So I was because I played games with them. I just didn't go in and everybody open up your textbook and here we go. And this is the
you made
verb.
It fun. You made it
fun.
fun.
And then what I would do with the kids, I said, you don't think. Now I did nothing when I substitute taught, but do conjugation and to take sentences and say, now what's this? They say that's a noun. I said, no, I know what it is. Do you know what it is a noun? What's the definition? Then they would have to say the definition. So I got them thinking and applying to get them to do. And I was a good teacher. But when I saved up $500, that was the end of that. And Paul Rutledge drove me to New York so I wouldn't have to spend money on a bus or a plane. Wow. And I went to New York, and Marcia Lewis, who was a college friend from college, had left. She didn't finish her last year, but she was already a registered nurse who came back to the university to get her degree in nursing. But she didn't finish because she got the acting bug because of me. And she had an apartment there with another nurse, so I stayed with her.
Where was that?
And it was over at 96th and Park Avenue in that big building, Mount Sinai Hospital.
Oh, yeah.
That's where she worked. And so I went there, and I had a place to stay, and Mr. Rutledge dropped me off. And so then I picked up a backstage and a show business, the newspaper, for the casting, and I had my equity card. Right. And I read the casting, and it said, Juliet Prowse, nightclub act. Needed one male dancer. Must be 6 feet, attractive, and sing.
Huh.
So that was me.
Wrote it for you.
Yeah.
So I went to the audition, and Ernie Flatt was the choreographer who did the Gary Moore show, and eventually did the Carol Burnett show. Choreographer. He was the choreographer. So I went to the audition, and of course back then I didn't have dance pants. I didn't sell those in Covington, Kentucky. So I wore my ballet tights. So that was a difference, but that's all I had to wear. But anyway, we auditioned, and Ernie Flatt said, now some of you will be called back tomorrow, and then Juliet will approve the dancer. And if you come tomorrow and you get the call, bring clothes because we'll start, rehearsal immediately. So I said, okay, now as we're auditioning, Julia Prowse's manager, Mark Mordo, was watching us.
So she wasn't in the first. She wasn't there.
She wasn't there at the first call, but he was. And we're dancing, and he's looking at me, and he's winking at me. And I thought, uh-oh, I'm going to have to put out to get the job. Made me very nervous. And so that night, I got a call to come back the next day. So I come back, and we're auditioning again, and Juliet's there, and this manager's still winking at me. And I thought, oh. And so only 2 of us were called back, and the other guy was like 6'2".
All right.
So I thought, well, he's going to get it because he's taller. But I could really sing. And a lot of dancers could sing back then.
Yeah.
So I got chosen. And then Juliet's manager. And then,
how tall was Julia Prowse?
Oh, she was like at least 5'8", if not 5'9", and her stocking feet.
Okay.
And then she wore high heels, and with that hair, she was over 6 feet.
Well, that's what I mean. Just watching her, I just remember her like appearing tall.
She was tall, and the most gorgeous legs on any human being I've ever seen in my life. And I have danced with Sid Charisse, who was gorgeous.
She's my favorite.
Did you wind up dating the manager? Julia Prowse's manager?
No, what happened?
Winks? What happened with the winks?
Well, at the end of the audition, he came up and he said, "Juliet, can I take the kid out for breakfast?" And I looked at him. I said, "No, thank you, sir. I'm here to rehearse." I thought, please. I'm very nervous. And Juliet said, "Yeah, you can take him out for breakfast." Now, she knows I'm going to have to put out to get the job. So we went out to have breakfast. And once he started eating, I knew he wasn't gay.
Yeah.
So that was the end of that. And he said, "I guess you wonder why I kept winking at you." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, when you walked in, I knew that you were going to get the job because I knew Juliet was going to pick you."
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's
He
awesome.
said, "I just wanted you to know you got the job." And then he said, "Now let's discuss your salary." And I thought, now here we go.
Yeah.
Now, but listen, I'm a member of Actors Equity, and the minimum then for dancers was $125 a week. So I thought, listen, Buster, don't mess with me. $125. He said, "We start you out at $350 a week, and when we get to Vegas, you make $4."
Wow.
That was my first job, and they picked up all the expenses.
Wow.
Wow.
My very first job in showbiz, and I fell hopelessly and madly in love with Juliet Prowse for the rest of her life. She was an incredible human being, a brilliant dancer, and she took care of me, and that started me on the road. And then when we finished the act, I came back to New York and picked up the newspaper, went to the audition for Sweet Charity, the Broadway musical, and I got that.
That was your
And-
first. That was your first Broadway show, with Sweet Charity?
Yes.
Okay.
With Bob Fosse and Gwen Verdon,
Yeah, I mean,
Cy Coleman, Dorothy Fields. I couldn't have fallen into a better situation. Geniuses, all of them.
And then you did the movie as well.
Yep, I did.
Did you know at the time though? Like that's my question is, that's your first Broadway show.
Yeah.
You had to know that this was special. Like this was
Yes.
this wasn't just an average show, that this was
No.
something very special.
The score was good. Gwen
Yeah.
Verdon was a genius, and Bob
Yeah.
Fosse was a genius.
Yeah.
And because I'm a student, and always have been, on the 5-minute breaks when all the kids were out smoking,
Yeah.
I would go into the room where Bobby and Gwen were working to watch them work, and they never said I had to leave because I studied them.
Yeah.
And I know one day they were doing, and Bobby would do it, and then Gwen would mimic him. And he
Yeah.
did a step, and then she did, and he said, "I don't know whether any of this shit is any good. On you, everything looks good," and he was right.
Yeah.
He did it, but then when she did it, it was better.
Was he famous then, or was he just becoming
Oh
famous
no,
then?
he was
famous
well
then.
established.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had done Damn Yankees,
Okay, yeah,
which made a star out of Gwen.
Yeah.
And he had done Pajama Game.
right.
So he was as good as you could get, really.
Do you have an opinion on the Fosse Verdon FX TV series they did there a few years back?
Well, it's interesting about that. Their daughter, Nicole, invited me to that, and me and Donna McKechnie went to it because we were both Fosse dancers. And
Yeah.
we went to when they did like a premiere of it.
Yeah.
Sure.
I didn't know that personal side because it was none of my business, number one, but it was
Right.
fascinating. But Nicole, their daughter, approved all of that, so it had to be a true
Yeah.
story.
Right.
And, Bobby was promiscuous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, that's the way it was.
Sure.
And, but, he was a genius.
Yeah.
And he's, of all of the choreographers, he's probably, for the younger kids, he's the one that they think about. It's like Stephen Sondheim being what the kids think that's, the only person who ever wrote for the theater.
Right.
But, he crossed that bridge. But I had a great time. And Fosse didn't like me in the beginning because I wore ballet tights. And at the audition, he wouldn't look at me.
Huh.
But I didn't have pants to wear. I didn't know where to buy them.
Right.
And you couldn't go out on the street and buy them. But
Was
Gwen was
Capizio-
watching me.
Was Capizio around
Capizio
at
didn't
the
make
time?
dance pants back then. They didn't.
Oh, okay.
There was a group of dancers who made dance pants for one another out of the double knit jersey. They started making them later, but not back then.
Right.
And but anyway, so at the audition, Fosse was kind of ignoring me because he thought I was a ballet dancer. But Gwen was watching me, and then we had to sing. I kept being kept But he wasn't looking at me. And then we had to sing. And then once I opened up my mouth, because dancers did sing back then.
Right.
And so Cy Coleman jumped up and ran over to Fosse. And I thought, oh, that's a good sign. But Fosse still wasn't buying me. Fosse liked character-looking people. I was too attractive, and all of that. I mean, I'm not bragging. It's just a fact.
No, too pretty.
And so then he had me read for a small part in the show called Young Spanish Man. And the other person reading with me was Miguel Hedro, who was Puerto Rican.
Right.
So I thought, oh, well, now he thinks now this is going to get me out. But, honey, I had Spanish 101 in college. So my was so good. Señorita, she's drowning in the lake. I mean, so I could do a better Spanish accent than Miguel Hedro, who was Puerto Rican. So I got the job. And then in rehearsal, Fosse would not always pay attention to me. And then in the Frug, we had to smoke because he smoked. He had a lit cigarette in his mouth when he worked, and it would burn his lip, and he'd knock it out and put another cigarette in his mouth. Right. And he said, and I said, well, I don't smoke, and I won't smoke. And he said, well, I guess if you're the only one who doesn't, they won't notice. So we get out of town, and then we had our first preview in Philadelphia. And I mean, this is a true story. At intermission, he came backstage and came into the dressing room, and he said, what were you doing out there tonight? And I thought, well, this is it. He's never liked me. He's going to fire me. I said, I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean. He said, perform like that. He said, my God, you came out there. I couldn't keep my eyes off of you tonight. You never did that in rehearsal. I said, well, you never asked me to perform in rehearsal. And then I became a favorite.
Wow.
Wow.
Then I became a favorite.
It was the dance pants.
And this goes on. Then when we came back to New York, I was making $125 a week. And Julia Prowse asked me to go back in her act. Well, I'm a show whore. Right. Whoever pays the most money gets me.
Yeah.
So I handed him my notice opening night. And Fosse came into the dressing room and said, I hear you handed in your notice. He said, well, would you give me one goddamn reason why you did this? We're going to have to replace you now and go back in rehearsal. And you know how many dancers want to be in my shows? And he said, give me the reason why you did this. I said, Julia Prowse pays me $400 a week, and you pay me $125.
Boom.
And he said, well, I can't argue with that. And but then he asked me to do the film, and I was also asked to dance with Gwen on a Bob Hope special, with Buddy Vest, another dancer, and the three of us did a trio. It's on YouTube, and it's called Cool Hand Luke. Yeah. Now, you wouldn't know who we are because we got hats on and mustaches.
I watched that one today, too. Yeah.
But we did that, and then Gwen asked me to dance with her on the Ned Sullivan show, and I danced with her on the Carol Burnett show.
Because I think
I was a favorite, and I'm so proud of that. I can't tell you.
Those variety show appearances, you like a star in the two dancers or whatever, which I guess probably really doesn't exist anymore today. But it's so great that they were captured.
Yeah.
I mean, they're kind of just amazing pieces. There was when I went to find that Sweet Charity video because I loved it. I remember having seen it before. And actually, you think about Pajama Game and things like that. I mean, that was the real first time that you see like what you would consider Fosse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like him, not doing Broadway, whatever, right? Yeah. I mean, doing him. But there was the first time I clicked on it was some guy who, I don't know, whatever, he does things. And he's like, never heard of this before. I mean, this is the voiceover leading into it. He goes, I don't know, some guy named Bob Fosse. He goes, this is pretty amazing. So just some guy, and then they'll go for a little bit. He stops, and then he does commentary. So some guy who knows nothing about anything stumbled across.
Well,
this clip.
when we were doing the film of Sweet Charity, it was just wonderful, and Bobby was so wonderful to us, and Gwen was there coaching Shirley MacLaine. I couldn't watch that.
Yeah.
And not nothing against Shirley MacLaine, but she wasn't Gwen Verdon.
Yeah.
Can you
not
Leroy,
in a million years.
Can you give me similarities and differences between working in front of the camera and working on a Broadway stage? Like what in regards to dance? I mean, I get the
you're at the mercy
aspect.
of the camera,
right?
And on stage you can do anything you want to. The curtain goes up, you walk out. They can't leave you on the cutting room floor.
Sure.
They can't cut away from you. You're there in control. That's why actors like to do live theater.
But Fosse directed the movie, right?
Yeah. His first movie.
Yeah.
And what happened with the movie, he got caught up with that viewfinder and looking at everything. And then he started doing a lot of cuts in the numbers because he was so creative. And I know when we would see the rough cut of one of the musical numbers, it was fabulous. But then when the whole thing was put together, it was too fast.
Yeah.
There were too many cuts.
Yeah.
It didn't concentrate enough. And Shirley MacLaine was wonderful, but too many cuts.
Yeah.
But then what's interesting about that, his next film was Cabaret, which got the Academy Award for
Right.
him.
Sure.
And I wrote him a letter. And I was on tour when I saw Cabaret. And I wrote him a letter and said, this movie is genius, and you must be so proud. I wrote him this letter. And he wrote me back, and Bobby didn't have a secretary then. He used to hand type, pick at the keyboard on a piece of typing paper, and then at the end he signed his name. And in essence, he said, Dear Lee Roy, you made my day today.
Wow.
I felt really good all day with your letter. And he said, now, tomorrow I'll go back and be the insecure person I am, but for one day you made my day. I love you, thank you. And signed Bobby. I have it framed.
No, but that's it.
Wow.
But that's great. And when it tells you to, when it comes from somebody, I mean, he obviously respected you, worked with you. When it comes from somebody like that versus outside, and he hadn't directed the musical on stage, or was it first in a film and then it went to the stage?
What?
Cabaret.
Oh, Cabaret. Cabaret was first on stage.
Okay, had he but
he had nothing to do with that production.
So,
that was Ron Field,
okay,
who choreographed and Hal Prince directed.
Oh, it was Hal Prince. Okay.
Yeah, that was the stage version, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
And Ron Field's work on that was terrific. He got a Tony Award for it.
Was Joel Grey in that production on stage?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then when they did the film, then it was all Bob Fosse.
Right.
And the film is brilliant.
Yeah.
No,
Liza
it's
Minnelli
incredible.
gave a performance. That's why she got the Academy Award. And the people in that film, it was just perfect. Now, this backstory, Fosse didn't really want Joel Grey to do the movie. He wanted to play the MC. Bob Fosse went, and they said, no, you can't do that.
Oh, wow.
And so there was a lot of friction between Joel and Bobby. But whatever it was, it worked.
Right.
And Joel Grey was brilliant in that film, and he got an Academy Award.
Yeah.
But all that fast work that he did in the original Sweet Charity, if you see the film Chicago, Rob Marshall used a lot of that technique of his from Sweet Charity, but it worked great. Rob did a wonderful job with that movie, Chicago. But that was influenced by Bobby.
Oh, 100%.
Sure.
You can almost look at it and just
All
see
draws
it.
back.
Yeah.
Did you ever cross paths with Lucille Ball?
Yes. I danced with her on the Carol Burnett show.
With Lucille Ball.
okay.
Yeah, with Lucille Ball.
Oh, wow.
And of course, I know her daughter very well.
Okay.
Lucy, little Lucy.
Yeah, little Lucy.
Yeah.
Lucy Arnaz is a wonderful person, and I know her very well. And then Lucille Ball came to see 42nd Street because she was very good friends with Carol Cook, who was the character lady, because she used to be with the Desilu Players.
Okay.
Lucy brought
Right.
Carol into that and sort of like discovered her.
Where do Gower Champion and Karen Baker come into your life?
Oh, God, here we go. Honey, get a pillow and go to bed. I was in Hello, Dolly, Carol Channing's first revival, and I played Cornelius Hackle. And that began my friendship with Jerry Herman for his lifetime. And I say this because it sounds like I'm bragging, but it's true. I was Jerry Herman's favorite singer. And he always had me go with him on dates to sing, and we became extremely close friends.
I saw you do a Jerry Herman night in the Rainbow Room on top of Rockefeller Center
Yes.
in New York.
Wow.
I came up and saw you do
And
that. Yeah.
When was that, Rex? What
It would
year?
have been probably early 90s, maybe. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
with Karen Morrill.
Yes. 100%.
Another incredible singer, just brilliant. But now where was I there with Jerry Herman? And the book writer was Mike Stewart. And Mike Stewart said, I'm writing a new show based on the Warner Brothers film 42nd Street with Ruby Keeler and Dick Powell. Now, I knew that movie from The Late Show. watching it on TV. And so I said, well, you know, Mike, I'm very right for that Dick Powell part. Didn't hear from him for a while.
And then I got never bashful, though. You're always.
And then I got a call that I had an audition for 42nd Street. And so I asked my agent, I said, what part is it? And he said, it's the part of Andy Lee. And I said, well, is that the Dick Powell part? He said, no, they think you're too old for that. Andy Lee is the choreographer, and he doesn't have a number in the show, but you're auditioning for the choreographer part. Well, I thought, the hell with that, I'm not going to go down. But then my partner, Bob, who I eventually married and became my husband, we were living together then, and Bob said, don't be a fool. Just go in and do what you do. Because in those days, we auditioned in theaters, not in small rooms. We auditioned
I miss
in
those
theaters.
days. Yes,
oh, please, it made all the difference.
Yeah.
All the difference. So I took the audition. And so I told my accompanist, because I brought my own accompanist, I said, now this is what we're going to do. I'm going to do my up tune. Don't wait for them to say, do you have a ballad? As soon as I hit the up tune, go right into the ballad. And a girlfriend of mine, Tony Kay, who was Ann Miller's understudy and Sugar Babies and was one of the most brilliant dancers ever and one of the wonderful people. And I had choreographed a number for us in the Rodgers and Hart review, a tap dance. She was in town. I said, bring your tap shoes. You're coming to my audition. So I said, I'm going to do my up tune, go right into the ballad, and on the last note of the ballad, you walk out and we do our tap dance. And so I put on a show.
I was going to say, there was no break. There was
no choice.
I wanted it so badly, I took charge. And so at the end of that, walking down the aisle of the theater was Gower Chapman. I thought, they're going to throw me out. And he walked down and he motioned for me to come to the front of the stage. And I leaned over and I said, yes. And he said, you're not right for the role of Andy Lee. I said, yes, I know that. He said, you're very right for Billy Lawler. I said, yes, I am. And there sat the fucking casting director. I wanted to go back and kick him in his fat ass, too old. But what's interesting then, I didn't sign a contract. And 2 days later, I got a call, and they said, come back, Gower wants to see you again. So I thought, well, this is it now. Everybody in town's going to be there. Now we start the competition. And so I came back, and I walked out, and he said, I just want you to do what you did before because I'm getting ready to choose Peggy Sawyer. And I just wanted to look at you again.
Oh, meaning you have the part.
Yeah, but I hadn't signed a contract.
And I want to see you next to the other people.
And Gower was famous for changing his mind. When they did Mac and Mabel, there were 4 Mabels before he finally got Bernadette Peters. And they used to call the show Mac and Maybe. That was the joke around New York. So anyway, and my agent said, now, Lee Roy, you have to be very careful because you don't have a contract. I said, I'm not insecure. I've got this part. I know it's mine. So then a third call comes in, and they said, Gower would like for you to come to work with a girl he thinks is going to play Peggy Sawyer. He wants to see the two of you together. And that's when Karen Baker, who was his assistant, and Randy Skinner were there. And, of course, I knew Karen from Cincinnati. We were dance partners and buddies, like brother and sister.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I go that day, and it's just the girl was Lisa Brown. And so Lisa and myself, Karen, Randy, and Gower, and we worked with her. And we did some of the choreography and stuff. And so when we finished, and he dismissed her, and he said to me, he said, now, what do you think? And I said, well, I like her very much. I think she's a wonderful actress. And she has a quirkiness which I think is infectious. And Karen Baker said, but Gower, she's not a very good dancer. And I said, well, I disagree. I think she was nervous, as all of us are, and I think she can do it. Well, she got the part. And she was on the soap opera Guiding Light, playing Nola, and she was in the Broadway musical Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. So she handed in her notices. And on Monday, she was supposed to come down and sign her contract. And that weekend, there was an open call for chorus dancers for 42nd Street. And Wanda Richard was at that call. And when she's auditioning, Gower said, that girl is very good. And Karen said, well, that's the girl who did Chorus Line in Chicago. She sent you a tape, you wouldn't look at it. And yes, she's a very good dancer. And Gower said, well, let's keep her afterward. She can read for the understudy. He kept her afterward, read her, and changed his mind. And Lisa Brown had handed her notice to both shows. And on Monday, she comes down to sign her contract, and Gower said, I'm very sorry, I've changed my mind. And as Lisa walked out, her high heel broke, and she limped out. She told the story to me later. But then the good story is, Guiding Light wrote her back into the script. She lost her pay, from the Best Little Whorehouse. But the good thing about the story, Lisa replaced Wanda when Wanda left. Okay. So Lisa did get to play the part. Right. And she was very good in the show. She was not the dancer that Wanda Richard was, and because Wanda was a really exceptional dancer. Right. And I loved dancing with her. And the genius of Gower Champion as a choreographer, he really knew how to stage a show and keep a show moving. He had a cinematic style. Like he would start a song and it would go into the next scene and would carry over, and the set would change. Right. There was never a moment without
where you go black.
Oh
and
yeah,
the thing
no.
Is, right.
Oh, he was a genius at doing that. Yeah. And so once Wanda got the part, then I got a call. I had now signed my contract, and Gower wanted Wanda and me to come in with Randy and Karen, and we were going to work on the ballet, which, was the end of the show, the big 42nd Street Ballet. So we came in and worked on that. And Gower was not a tap dancer. I mean, he could do a shuffle step, but he wasn't a tap dancer.
Okay.
And that's why Karen and Randy were there, to give him the steps. And then he choreographed, but they added tap steps, but he did what he wanted the sound. Yeah. And so, and the 42nd Street Ballet, which you can see on YouTube, and you can see Wanda and me dance it. It was the Miss Universe, 42nd Street. If you put my name in, and it'll probably come up. And so we worked on that. But what Wanda and I added to the number was, we were both jazz dancers, and we added a sexiness to the show. And like the soldiers picking up a girl on Times Square. Yeah. So it gets a little sexy. Yeah. And Wanda and my bodies fit together. That's why he knew what he was doing.
That bit where you're back to back with her.
Yes.
Doing it, right?
Our legs fit together. It was like we were one dancer. Yeah. And Gower, that was his genius. That was his genius.
Where did the creation, or whose idea, or where did that come about, where the curtain rises just above so that you can just see the feet? Yes. My wife is a dancer, and that moment in musical theater history just is, I think, brilliant.
She studies or is taking lessons with Karen?
With Karen, she was actually, Karen was one of her first teachers here in New York.
Tim's wife.
The idea, first of all, there was an audition number, and Karen told me this because I didn't know it, that he wanted a number like Bob Fosse did in the show where they had the audition, All That Jazz. Yeah. And that's what he wanted to do, an audition number. And Randy and Karen gave him steps to do. And that number was formed. But then there was an opening scene, like in the movie, where people are, being auditioned. They say, raise your skirts, girls, and all that stuff. And one day in rehearsal, this is what I remember. Gower said, why are we messing with this first scene? The people want to see tap dancing. So let's just open with a tap dance. And they opened with that. And initially, there wasn't an overture. It just started with a piano and the curtain raised, and then it held for a moment to show the feet, then went up. Now, the stage managers always said, no, that happened out of town, that we got caught up in no. Nothing happened by accident with Gower Champion.
You mean the stage manager said it was a mistake?
There may have been a moment where it did get caught one night, but it was always choreographed to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was Gower Champion's genius.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was one of the most exciting openings. At this point in rehearsal, Gower told us he was suffering from an anemic blood condition. And he said, so I have to sometimes come in late because I have to get a blood transfusion. But he looked fine, so we never thought a thing about it. And we later found out it was called Waldenstrom's disease. I didn't know what the hell that, but it's sort of like leukemia of the blood, that kind of thing. But we didn't think too much about it.
How old was he?
He was like 50.
Oh, so he was.
Oh, wow.
9.
Okay. Yeah. I had in my mind he was older than that. Oh, right.
No. Or maybe 60, but right, in that age range. Yeah. And so But, he was working, and we thought nothing about it. And then he and Wanda, we could see that they were getting attracted to one another, and that was kind of going on. And then it happened out of town. But Wanda and me danced that ballet better than anybody because it was done on us. We added that sexy jazz feel. We danced into the floor rather than tapping on top of it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And it really is, I love watching it, and it's Gower's best work and his most successful show.
Yeah.
So we did that, and then another good story. I didn't have a solo dance number in the show, and one day in rehearsal he came in, and by the time, we worked for a week before the rehearsal started. So by that time,
what were you doing? You said you worked
Like
for a week.
pre-show.
A week.
Rehearsal.
For a week doing the ballet.
Oh, just the ballet?
Yeah, just the ballet.
Just the ballet, gotcha.
And so then when the company came in and we started, and the last day that we were all together, Gower said, I said, it's very important for you to realize how much I appreciate what you've given me in this week, to me and Wanda, and Karen and Randy. He said, I really appreciate, you don't know how important this is to me, and thank you. Because he said, now I'm going to start rehearsal, and I'm going to have to deal with David Merrick, and I'm never going to have this luxury again. But he said, it's important to me that you know this. Now, I never thought anything about that because he was dying.
He knew he was dying.
Yeah. And what's ironic, in the original movie, the character is dying of a heart condition. That's in the original film.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, art is imitating, life is imitating art.
Right.
It was really weird. But anyway, so that started, and then in rehearsal one day, the number, We're in the Money, Gower said, Lee Roy, he said, this number was for the girls. It's not going to work. I want to see you dancing on a big dime. Let's go in the room next door. So Randy, Karen, and me went next door in the rehearsal room with Gower, and we staged We're in the Money, which you can see on YouTube also.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so Gower didn't tap dance, but he knew the sound and what he wanted us to do.
Visually,
The
and he
rhythm.
could hear it, right?
Yeah.
Which is,
So the opening thing, which was not tapping, it was just, he could do that. And then Karen and Randy would add in. And then when I made my entrance from my solo, Gower said, now tap dance down, Leroy. Now go stage left, tapping, do your thing over there. Come back. Now stay there while they put the big dime down and do something in front of it. I said, okay, I can do this. By this time, I was tuned in.
Right.
He just had to look at me, and I knew what he wanted. So he said, now get up on the dime. Now do that. Do your thing up there. Now on this next step, go around the rim doing a little thing. So I went around the rim and doing a little thing. He said, now do something fancy here. Now jump off. Now do turns around the dime. Go over to stage left and bring on the boys. And now I got the last step. This is the last step. And so we did that. We did that number in an afternoon, and it never changed.
Wow. I mean, you're describing it, and anybody who's ever seen it, it's one of those things that's kind of burned in your head, isn't it? I mean, the image, I can instantly see it.
He designed the number, and I put my steps into it, and Randy and Karen worked with the ensemble, but he basically did the number. Now, another thing, he comes into rehearsal one day, and he said, I've got to do Lullaby of Broadway today. I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do. We came back from lunch, and when you worked with Gower in the room, no talking, no eating, no drinking, and if you did that, you better get your ass out. So we were all like this, and he would sometimes just stand there and look at us until he decided what he wanted, then he'd start like playing chess, with us. So we came in after lunch, and we got up to do Lullaby of Broadway. And he said, okay, Jerry and Karen and Wanda, start the song, Jerry. She's got her suitcase. Put the suitcase down, Wanda. Jerry, make her sit on it. Get behind her, and he did it off the top of his head. He said, okay, now, Wanda, leave, and come back to get your suitcase. Jerry, put your foot on it. Now, one of the principals is going to come out and sing the next section. And let's have Carol, Joe, Leroy, Danny, all of you sing the first song, the of course, when I opened my mouth, everyone laughed because they knew it was going to be me. So I was the first one out. Then he added Karen, and he designed, he said, now come down the horseshoe stairs. Now the next one come in. And everything he did was exactly what it should be.
Right.
And then we got into the big kick line, and I knew, he would look at me, I know, now I have to go to the other side. We did that in an afternoon, and not one thing ever changed.
Wow.
That's incredible.
I'm sitting here thinking about it.
It was genius.
It's like, with an actor in a script, a director will let an actor go loose, read the script and interpret it, right? And then provide some structure around it. And it's almost like he choreographed that way.
Yes.
It's like, I know that you can bring all of this to it. I just need to show you what the big stroke is here that I'm looking for, and then
it's like Lennon and McCarthy, man. You get lyrics, you got the music, and you got two people. It's symbiotic. It's getting those like-minded folks together in a room and it's genius magic.
Well, by this time, I was so tuned into Gower, he would look at me, and he didn't have to tell me. I knew what to do. When we did the number Dames, this is another thing. It starts out in the rehearsal area. We get out of town. And he says, let's see the number. And we're in rehearsal clothes. And I start the number as the tenor. And we do the number. Then we walk off, and the girls come on. And we're into the show, and they're in their little tunics doing a workout number. And then the boys come back in all tuxedos. And then the girls come out of the Maison de Dames, as they've all been transferred now into these gorgeous showgirls. He did that number. And he had Karen on one side, Randy on the other. He said, now, what colors are they? We're going to make the rainbow. Now, when they come out the door, now, put them in the pattern. He said, now, Leroy, when you do your solos, find a hole, come through and do your poses. Pose. And I knew what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it became a thing. I would see a hole, I'd go out and I'd pose and sing my thing. And it was just amazing. Yeah. And then finally, we all ended up in a horseshoe. And Karen was running around with the one side, Randy with the other, and making sure the colors all matched. We did that too. It was just, it was like doing magic. Never changed.
Yeah. Let me ask you this now. Because we could spend an entire episode on just your Broadway show history, all of that. But then, so where is Leroy now? You're on your umpteenth Broadway show. Now, where does the director choreographer within Leroy start to emerge? Was it your desire? Was it presented to you? Like, where does that emerge?
Well, when I was in college, I think that Paul Rutledge felt that my real talent was that of a director choreographer, because I did the musicals my junior senior year where I directed, choreographed, plus played the lead, and he thought that was going to be my thing. But I like performing too much,
right?
And it was interesting. Tommy Tune is so unique that he can do, because he's so unique. When I did the Carol Channing last revival of Hello Dolly, I got a lot of attention as a director choreographer, but I got scared because then people said, oh, so you're not performing anymore now, you're directing. Oh, no, because I like to perform too much.
Right.
And then also when you direct and choreograph, when you're offered things you don't want to do, you have to make money. And so to direct and choreograph something that I don't respond to, it's hard for me. But yet you have to do that. But then if the show isn't any good, who gets blamed?
Yeah.
Right.
And then they say, well, that last show he did wasn't so good. Yeah. So I never got into that. Not that I couldn't, because I like it. But there were too many people ahead of me who were already doing it. So by the time it got to the point as I was getting older and not as castable because of my age, but then there were other people ahead of me who already had the credits. So it was hard to compete. And then also, I wasn't offered anything from scratch. I had done, I directed many productions of Hello Dolly because I love the show so much and I respected Gower's work so much. But I changed things in Dolly. I did it my way. And for the better. And when we did the last revival on Broadway with Carol, I had added some changes. And Marge Champion, who had worked with Gower on the original production, his wife then, she was my date. Okay. And so she was sitting next to me, and at the end of dancing, what happens, Dolly and Cornelius dance on, and then Mrs. Malloy and Barnaby dance on. And then there's an exchange where Mrs. Malloy and Barnaby and Cornelius go off, and then Barnaby goes off, and Minnie Fay comes on, dances around Dolly, and then she berets off, and, as Carol says, she gives to me the force of life, whatever that meant. And so that was it. But then I thought, well, this is not working. What it has to be, it's matchmaker. I want to see Dolly making the matches. So I had Cornelius and Dolly dance on, Barnaby and Mrs. Malloy. Then I had her physically take Cornelius, put him with Mrs. Malloy. They go off together. Mrs. Malloy looks back and throws a kiss like, thank you, Dolly, because she's fallen in love.
Right.
That's the show's about matchmaking.
Yeah.
And then I left Barnaby on stage. So when Minnie Fay comes dancing around, then Dolly looks at Barnaby, motions for him to come, and he pulls Minnie Fay off, and they make a match.
Right.
Then she's totally alone. Then she goes into her soliloquy, let me go, Ephraim. It's been long enough. She's got to rejoin the human race. She's made matches for everybody else but herself.
Right.
And so when that happened in the show, Marge Champion hauled off and hit me on the arm and went, hit me. And she said, brilliant.
Yeah. Right, because it finally all makes sense.
And then in So Long Dearie, which is later in the show, I tried to refresh Carol because she was so busy trying to remember what she did. I said, Carol, let's try to. I said, first of all, I got to get you back on the ramp for Dearie. She said, no, Dolly doesn't go on the ramp after the Dolly number. I said, well, where does it say that? I said, but that's your road back into life. You go on that when you talk to Ephraim, and you get on it when you do the parade. You do the Dolly number on it. That's when you're rejoining the human race. Now, with this scene, the thing is, the only thing a woman had at that turn of time was her sex, because she couldn't vote. She basically became property of the husband, and the only thing a woman could manipulate the men by was with her sex. So when Van de Gelder says to you, I wouldn't marry you if you were the last woman on earth. And her thought is, oh, you don't want to marry me? Well, guess what? I don't want to marry you. But what I got is so good, but you can't have it. So wave your little hand and whisper, so long, dearie. You ain't going to see me because it's so good, but you can't have it anymore. So I said, this is what it is, Carol. You're vamping him. Yeah. And then she's on her way off. You don't want me. I'm going to learn to drink and smoke a cigarette. I'm going to get as far away from Yonkers as a girl can get. Get on that ramp. And now you're going on your road, and you get out there, and on those cold winter nights, horse, you can snuggle up to your cash register. It's a little lumpy, but it rings. I said it's like doing a strip.
Yeah.
She finally plugged into that, and that night, Marge Champion again hauled off and slapped me, and she said, brilliant.
Yeah.
She said Gower never had a chance to fix it because it was put in out of town. She said, brilliant.
I'm wondering, Leroy, if you played a hand when we were in high school at School for Performing Arts, 85, 86, Carol Channing came to speak, kind of do a meet and greet, talk back with the assembly of students. Did you play a hand in that?
No, because I was at 42nd Street between 1980 and 1988.
Okay.
Yeah. But Carol did a lot of, versions of Hello, Dolly and came through. Now, we played Lorelei here in Cincinnati at the Schubert Theater, and we did that tour of Dolly. We played Music Hall. Carol loved Cincinnati audiences.
And you become, really dear personal friends with her. You were. Yeah.
She was responsible for a lot of my career. We met on Lorelei, and then I got a phone call one day. Ring goes, she says, hello, Leroy. It's Carol, darling. Carol Channing, like I didn't know. Said, darling, I'm going to do a revival of Hello, Dolly, and I want you to play Cornelius Hackle. But, darling, Jerry Herman and Lucia the Victor, the director, darling, don't know you, but don't worry, you got the job.
It's nice to have friends like that. It's nice to have friends like that.
So she's responsible. Then, through Dolly, I met Jerry Herman. which
Wow.
a lifelong
Yeah.
working relationship, and Mike Stewart with 42nd Street.
Wow.
It all came from that, and it was at that time that I was doing applause with Lauren Bacall, and we became really, really close friends. And I did a tour with Betty, because her real name is Betty Persky, and she liked to be called Betty. And we had to call her that. And she wanted me to go to London with her because we became buddies. And by that time, I was with her agent because she felt my agent wasn't working well. But her agent...
She replaced your agent.
She replaced my agent with hers. But then he called me up and he said, Leroy, you'll go to London and Betty, and you'll have a great time. She'll take you every place. Because we went out together and all of that, socialized. And he said, but you've got to change your image because you've played a homosexual. And applause. By the way, the first American actor in a musical to play an openly gay character. It's in the history books now.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't think of it that important, but it was.
Yeah.
Right.
We can talk about that if you want to get into all of that. But anyway, so I didn't go to London. And I auditioned for Lorelei, and my character in Lorelei was an Olympic athlete. So I thought, well, that'll change the image.
That'll do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that brought Carol Channing into my life, and she was responsible for a lot of my career.
Yeah.
A lot of
Well,
my
I
career.
don't. Do you remember, Leroy? And I think Ron and Rex, you may have been in the room as well. I think it was Acting Lab when Leroy came to speak to us our senior year.
Yeah,
Do you guys remember that?
I don't know what you were in town for, but my dad brought you in, and you came to us. Ron and Tim and I were at Performing Arts School together the same year we graduated in '86, but you came in and talked to us. I remember my dad had put it together. You were in town for something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing
Well,
something.
the thing
Very,
about
but it was. I just want you to know it was very impactful because, and now talking to you this many years later and hearing how you were with teaching and with those students, how remarkable that was. Because to this day, I remember your presence, what you had to say about New York and performing and a life in this business. So it's just wonderful to come full circle like this.
Well, everybody has their own story and their own success with what they did. I'm a very simple person. I learned a long time ago, I'm basically shy. I know you find that hard to believe, but I am basically shy. I was, but I learned a long time ago that if I wanted to get any place, I had to stand up and be noticed and tell people what I wanted.
Yeah.
Because I had no one to speak for me. And when I went to college, my family were not sophisticated people. They didn't know. When I went to freshman orientation, all the kids are with their parents. Well, my parents didn't know, so I had to go on my own. And that day, Paul Rutledge came out on the stage, and he was head of the theater department. And I looked and I said, I've got to know that man. So I went backstage and introduced myself and said, I'm going to be a theater arts major. And he talked to me about Mummers Guild and told me where it was. I found Wilson Auditorium,
Right.
went in, knocked on the door, went in, and Joan Wilson, who was president her senior year, I met her and she became my first friend. And I joined the Mummers Guild, but I learned a long time ago, you have to, it's not being pushy, it's just wanting something so badly. And if you don't tell people what you want, they won't know.
Right.
And I don't waste time beating my head against a wall. I'll go around it and go to the next thing until finally I find a way to get in.
Sure.
And I loved music and singing and dancing and acting, and it was just natural, and it's what I did. I never had to make a decision about what I was going to do. It's just how I was going to get there. But I had to do it on my own because my family couldn't do it for me.
Do you dance every day?
No.
Is that something that okay?
I put my dancing shoes up after I did White Christmas down at the Muni Opera. I worked down there, and that's when I hung up my dancing shoes. I don't want to be an old person looking like they can't dance anymore.
Where was that? Where was White Christmas? Or when
it was at St. Louis Muni, the Muni, Municipal Opera down at St. Louis.
Was that many years? Like last?
We originated the show there. It's an interesting story that goes with that because Paul Blake, who's the managing producer there, he called me on the phone. He said, Leroy, I'm going to do a new musical based on White Christmas, the movie. Now, don't get upset, Leroy, because, I love you. I said, yes, Paul, I know that you employ me whenever I'm free to come and work. I said, yeah. He said, you're too old to play that part. So Larry Teeter's going to play that part, the Danny Kaye part. But Larry can't come to the reading because I had to present it to the Berlin Daughters to get permission. I have to do a reading of it, and you'll give a performance. So Larry can't come, so you're going to play the part just for the reading. And I said, Paul, I would be glad to do it for you. You can employ me all the time. I'll come and do it. So we do the reading. And so the next day, Paul Blake calls and he says, I'm never going to ask you to do that again. I said, what happened? He said, the Berlin Daughters. I told him, now, some of the people who read today are not in the show, like Lee Roy Reams. And they said, oh, no, he's in the show. That's who we like. And he said, well, how about if he plays the other part, the Bing Crosby? They said, no, because we don't like that other guy. No, he's going to play that part we saw. And so then Larry Teeter had to play the other part. And that's how it started out. Now, I didn't do the show on Broadway, but we had a great time doing the show. And but, fate, you just, listen, I have fun.
But I mean, your career didn't, careers can tend to be short, 20 years or something, and then you're out. But I mean, you went on and did, you were in Disney musicals. You worked with Mel Brooks.
Yes.
I mean, you went on and continued throughout.
Well,
and
the producers.
The producers.
You're even at 54 Below. He's still.
Oh, and I'll be there November 18th, and I'm going to do a whole evening about 42nd Street. You heard most of it tonight.
Anything on Mel Brooks?
Well, Mel Brooks. This is a good story. I went to see Glenn Kelly, who helped Mel write the score. That was a friend of mine. And so he took me to the last weekend of previews. And then they were opening like either the next night or the next night after that, I forget. And so we went to see the show. I loved it. It's the funniest musical I have ever seen in my life. It was brilliant.
I think I agree with you on that.
Susan Stroman's work was just incredible. And I had worked with Anne Bancroft. I did her first TV special.
Okay.
And I can talk about Anne Bancroft, but we'll stick to Mel for now. So after the show, next door was Angus McIndoe's, who was a restaurant next door at the St. James. So Glenn and I went over there to have a bite. Well, in comes Mel with Anne Bancroft and Carolyn and Tom Meehan, who helped Mel with the book. So they sit down next to us. And so I said, now I know I shouldn't say this because, it's people think it's bad luck to tell you how great a show is, but I'm telling you right now, your show is so brilliant, it's going to win all the Tony Awards. It is that good in every single department. And Anne Bancroft said, darling, what part do you want to play in the tour? I said, Ula. And they laughed. And so then fade out. Now they're getting ready to cast the national tour. And I get a call to audition. And they told me, no, we want you to learn the song Heil Myself and perform it with 2 days' notice.
Oh, wow.
To learn a song I'd never done before, memorize the lyrics, and perform it. And Gary Beach had won a Tony Award.
Yeah, I was going to say, right? It wasn't.
And everybody sitting there has seen the number how many times. I don't know the choreography.
Right.
And I'm going to learn the song and try to memorize the lyrics. Again, I keep telling the students all the time because I try to inspire the young people. I keep saying, follow your instinct. Don't compete, create. When you go in, don't try to do what you think they want you to do. Do what you do best, and then show them. Be confident, and perform it.
Yep.
So I could read Heil Myself at the music. I just didn't want to be under the pressure of I'm performing it.
Yeah.
So my agent said, now look, Leroy, you can't go in there and do what you usually do.
This is great.
You got to go in and do what they tell you to do.
Your agent already knows what you're. He's like,
I said, right.
That's right.
So anyway, I go in and I said, and Mel was there. That gave me the confidence. Probably had he not been there, it may not have worked.
Right.
But Mel was there. And so I came in and I said, now, forgive me. I can read this and sing it for you so you know how it sounds on me, but I can't perform it because I don't know it well enough. But I can perform a song for you that I do know in the style of the number. And Mel said, oh, just do what you want to do, Leroy. And the casting agents are like, giving me that look.
Right.
So I said, okay. So my accompanist goes over and goes, and I went, I had a dream about you, Adolf! And I did the Nazi salute. And Mel fell on the floor. And then I proceeded to dance around going, well, you'll be swell. You'll be great. I go, ooh, hit myself on the rear end and just acting like a fool. And I got the part.
I bet you did.
And I got the part.
Brilliant.
Yeah, you're right. I think Mel Brooks had to be in the room for that because nobody else is going to. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Well, and also when I auditioned for Beauty and the Beast, and I came in and again, they wanted me to do Be Our Guest.
Yeah.
To learn it and perform it. And it puts you under such pressure. Mm-hmm. So I came in for that too, and I said, now look, I can sing it for you so you know that it's in my voice. But I said, I can't perform it. I don't know it well enough. So can I do a song in the style? And I did It's Today.
Well, that's
Light the candles, get the ice out, roll the rug up. It's today, doing, and again, just performing something that you're confident in doing rather than being under that pressure.
Yeah.
So in that case, knock on wood, it happened 2 times.
That's
now,
brilliant.
You take a chance to do that, but I was confident enough to know that I really wanted to play those parts, and I knew I could.
Yeah.
And
how often do you get back to Cincinnati? Do you have family in Cincinnati?
I have a lot of family in Cincinnati. Yeah. If they're not pregnant at 16, something's wrong with them. We've got them all shapes, colors, and sizes. I've got way over 100. I have great nieces and nephews.
Oh, that's fantastic.
See, I was the youngest of 7. My eldest brother could have possibly been my father. So, and my niece was only 2 years younger. So I grew up with my nieces and nephews.
Okay.
It's amazing.
And do you get back often?
When I can, I usually have to have a purpose. I don't come back just to visit. Usually something will make it happen, like the Cincinnati Women's Club, offered the job to me to come back and perform. So I came back and I'm staying, until Monday. So I can see everybody and get paid.
And what did you do down there? Just give people an idea of what does that look like when you bring Leroy into town? What did you do down there?
Pam Myers and I shared an evening. Okay. We did a couple opening numbers together, and she did her songs, I did mine. Then we did a closing number together.
Oh, that's great. And you bring your companies here, or somebody's there?
No, Terry LeBolt.
Oh, wow.
Who's from, CCM.
Yeah, sure.
And he's a buddy, and now he's not working at Indiana University, so he's here. So he's here to play for us.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So we get the old act together.
Right. Get the band back together.
Is there a YouTube clip of you receiving your honorary doctorate?
No.
Is there a speech?
Okay. There isn't. Some wonderful photos with President Stager and Pat Corbett. It's real. Now, that's an interesting story, too. When I would come back, whenever they would do events, and I was at one event at President Stager's house there in Clifton, and all men standing around. And I said, gentlemen, what's interesting to me is every time you have an event, you bring in the musical theater people to perform. And isn't it interesting that all of us have never received an honorary doctorate? You gave one to Suzanne Farrell, who left here when she was 15, and but no one from the musical theater department has ever received an honorary doctorate. Well, guess who got it?
So,
oh, wow. Okay.
You reminded them while you were bringing in basically as the help. You went and said, "Hang on a second."
And were they all stuffing dollar bills into your brassiere when you were performing for that?
I wish. But you know what it is? Sometimes you have to plant the idea. Sometimes they just don't think about that.
Right. Sure. Oh, it goes back to what you were saying, asking for what, or being up.
And an important thing about Pam Myers. The College Conservatory of Music was the first college in America to have a musical theater major. Helen Laird and Dean Watson instigated that. Now, Scott Coulter, who's an alumnus and wonderful, wonderful talent, a great guy, kind of gives me credit for inspiring the musical theater thing because of what I did at UC. It's very flattering. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but I'll take it. And Scott's very...
Well, you were going from one to the other to the other, right?
Yeah,
So
and Scott is very nice about it, but it was really Helen Laird. But anyway, Pam Myers was the first student in the program in America and the first graduate with a musical theater degree in America.
Wow.
And then, of course, I got my master's by doing CCM. But I came back. I was coming back from California. With Juliet, when I went out to California, I stayed there with Tony Charmley, who was her choreographer. I adored him. And I danced on the Danny Kaye show, and then the Dean Martin show, the Red Skelton show, the Carol Burnett show. I danced with all the star ladies, and it was really a lot of fun, but it's not what I wanted to do. I was a singer, too, and I wanted to get back to Broadway. And 1 week on the Carol Burnett show, I had done it for about 3 months. I was not happy. And and Carol Burnett, she was going to do a takeoff. Well, first of all, I did a record that I gave to her. She never knew my name, by the way, of 3 months. And I thought, this is not going to work. And I gave her a record of me singing. She said, oh, that's very sweet. And we'll talk about that sometime. And she said, well, Ernie, maybe one week we'll let the kids do a number on the show. I thought, I got to get out of here.
Right.
I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
So I told 1 week they were going to do a number, takeoff on the Jungle Book. And she was going to play Mowgli. And Ernie said to me, you and Randy Doney, another dancer, are going to be the elephant. Leroy, you want to be the front or the rear end? And I said, neither. I said, can I talk to you at the end of the day? I said, Ernie, I will finish out the week. There are dancers here who would kill to have this job. I worked too hard to be an elephant. I got to get back to New York. Wow. So I'm handing in my notice.
Yeah.
I'll finish out the week. And then Mitzi Gaynor called for me to do her act. I said, no, I'm going back to New York. And her husband said, Leroy, you've got to do this. At least rehearse the act, do the engagement at Lake Tahoe, then we can replace you. But Mitzi really needs you, and I loved Mitzi Gaynor. She was one of the most talented human beings on the earth. She was never fully used to. She made a lot of money, but her talent was greater than what was tapped. She was an incredible talent. But anyway, Did
you ever work with Vera Ellen?
No.
Or cross paths?
But I took ballet class with her. But she was basically retired.
Okay.
At that point. When I was there, she was retired. But anyway, so I left Lake Tahoe, and that's when Paul Rutledge called and said that they were going to do the Showboat for the summer. And he said, would you like to come back and help me run the Showboat, direct, choreograph, and play the lead in the shows? And I will give you credit for your masters.
Oh.
I said, ooh. Now I couldn't pass that up, and I wanted to be home.
Yeah.
So I came home, and Pam Myers was my leading lady.
Oh, wow.
She was going into her senior year, and this was 1968. And so Pam and I, it was the beginning of a beautiful friendship that began, us being joined at the hip forever. And we operated the Showboat for the summer, which was so much fun.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. God, was that fun to do.
And other than the Carol Burnett show, did you ever spend extended periods of time in Los Angeles or on the West Coast? Was there any?
I was on the West Coast for 2.5 years.
Oh, okay.
Doing all those variety shows and doing all the television specials.
Got it.
Like The Littlest Angel and all of that.
You were based out there. Like you were actually residing. You weren't doing, the back and forth. Okay.
And I was working all the time. And I was having a good time, and my sex life was in bloom at that point, so I was having a hell of a good time, and but it wasn't what I wanted to. I wanted to play parts.
Yeah,
sure.
And I finally, the thing on the Carol Burnett show was, I said, got to get out of here. Yeah. And then I came back to New York and went immediately on the Ed Sullivan show, dancing for Peter Gennaro, because I always worked. And then I auditioned for Will Parker for Richard Rodgers at Lincoln Center. And that's a good story. So I get an audition for Richard Rodgers, the Richard Rodgers.
Yeah.
And they told me, do not sing a Richard Rodgers song at your audition, Because if you don't sing it right or you miss a lyric, he gets very upset. Don't sing a Richard Rodgers song. So in my state, I thought, well, I'll impress him that I'm really a singer. So I decided to sing Leonard Bernstein's Lonely Town. I got out one stanza and he screamed, I don't want to hear you sing that. You're here to play a comedy character. Don't you have a comedy song? And I said, no, sir. I don't, but I can sing Kansas City, I know. Well, why won't you sing that? You sing that in the show. I said, I'd be glad to sing it for you, Mr. Rogers. And I sang Kansas City. And they said, young man. I said, yes, sir. He said, can you dance? I said, yes, sir. He said, show me. And I had a dance routine. And I did my dance routine. He said, young man. I said, yes, sir. He said, is there anything you can't do? I said, no, sir, there isn't. And I got the job. I never read the script. I never read the script. And my Aunt Eller was Margaret Hamilton, the Wicked Witch of the West. Can you believe that?
Wow.
She was such an influence in my life. She used to ask me down to her Gramercy Park apartment, and she would make what she called toasted cheese sandwiches. We say grilled cheese.
Yeah.
And she would make tea for us. And oh God, what a great ride that was. And to be around Richard Rodgers. I would come in, by that time, most of his jaw was gone from cancer. And I thought of him as being old. He actually wasn't that old in today's standards, but he walked very slowly. But I didn't care. Richard Rodgers was there, and I would look at him and my mouth would drop open, thinking about all of the melodies that came out of that mind. I mean, South Pacific, Carousel. Oh my God, my mouth would drop open. And to quote Sally Fields, he liked me.
Yeah.
And he liked what I did in the part. And when we had to perform our numbers for him, and Agnes DeMille, by the way, she was still alive. She didn't choreograph her, but she came to, supervise. And we had to do our numbers for them. And when we presented the number, we had changed some of the choreography. But she didn't know the difference because she liked doing the girl stuff.
Right.
But I did the Kansas City, and afterward, and Mr. Rogers said, Roy, come here, Roy. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, now, when you do counting 20 gas buggies, put your hand down a little lower so I can see your face. So you go, counting 20 gas buggies. I said, is that it, Mr. Rogers? He said, that's it. The rest of it's fine. And I was he liked me.
Right.
And he signed my poster. He signed my poster for me.
Yeah. Are you writing a book? Are you writing a memoir?
Oh,
I mean, you really.
I wish I could write. I'm too clinical I'm not
All you
as
do
good
is
a writer.
You get someone, you sit with someone, and you
I know they say that, but I don't think anybody. I mean, we like it because we like talking about the theater. I don't know whether. I need to find someone, but then to find someone to help me write the book, you get into legalities. They want 50%, and I go, but I.
So you have considered.
And then also, do people care anymore about that? I mean, we do, but
I think people care.
The young kids I talk, they don't even know who Ethel Merman is anymore.
I mean, to some extent, yeah. But I mean, Lee Roy, you go back to. I mean, if you think about when you were young and starting out, and you were working with people at the ends of their career, how far back that stretches in time. I mean, right?
Well, I worked with Chita Rivera. I danced with her. I directed her in a fabulous production of Anything Goes, which I have a copy of. If you ever get to New York, I'll put it on to show you. It's great. And Chita was the last of the golden era.
I got to work with Chita twice. She came up, I ran sound up at North Shore Theater, and she came up and did her show. And then later, you might have known Larry Alford. You probably,
sure.
Yeah, you knew Larry. So Larry was a producer and would send out stuff onto the ships and things like that. And one of the things he did is he got Chita for the summer, was doing a cruise out of New York to the Bermuda. And I went out and put the sound in for her and got a guy trading around. But she was such a, what an amazing
one
woman.
of a kind, man.
Yeah,
the best. She could do anything, and that sense of humor. We did Anything Goes, and I directed her, and she said, "Are you really going to do it?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Okay, if you do it, I'll do it." And it was the best production. And I changed. Oh my God, I changed so many things. and I put in every bit. And Bruce Adler, who played Mooney, was a brilliant actor. And he came from that Poconos, Borscht Belt sense of humor.
Yeah.
Every joke we ever heard, we put into that show. We put in jokes like you, and Cheetah was just, you tell her what to do, she just did it.
Yeah.
And when she did it, was even better. And at the end of the first act, they sing Anything Goes. And I said, I want everybody in the company to tap dance. So we had everybody tap dancing. There was a joke about a lady in a wheelchair. She brought out, she picked up her skirt and did a tap number and then sat back down in the chair. We did all these jokes. And at the end, there's a big pause. Bump, bump. Anything goes. And I said, on that bump, bump, I want everyone to face up stage. I want the Statue of Liberty to walk out at the top of the ship and shoot off her torch. They said, well, of course you're kidding. I said, no, I'm not. I really want that. They said, well, that's not funny. I said, yeah, it's
It'll
funny.
work.
Because it's called
Yeah.
Anything Goes. It's so
Exactly.
ridiculous. Anything goes. Well, they did it. And our first audience that we had, I was a nervous wreck. Because I thought, oh, my God.
Now what have I done?
We've stolen all these jokes that we put in and doing all this vaudeville, borscht, humor and all of this. And we literally took the old script, the revised script, and combined them. Plus put in all the jokes. And so at that moment came bump, bump, and the girl came out dressed as the Statue of Liberty in the green, and the torch wouldn't shoot. She went 1, 2, and on the third thing, the thing went off and shot the thing. The audience screamed and stood up. And they did that at every performance. And then at the very end of the show, I wanted, when Cheetah took her bow, I wanted a gorilla to come out and grab her. And they said, well, and I said, please, anything goes. They wouldn't pay for the gorilla costume. Now, Gwen and Cheetah and I, we were all buddies. And Gwen and Cheetah loved to play jokes. So I called Gwen and I said, Gwen, when Cheetah closes a paper mill, you come out with me, and we won't let anyone know that you're in the theater. And we have a running joke about this old lady in the wheelchair. I'll get dressed up as a sailor. And when Cheetah takes her last bow, I'll wheel you across and you dress up as the old lady, and you jump up out of the chair and take off your disguise and grab Cheetah. The audience will go crazy. And Gwen said, I'm in. Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm coming. I said, I'll drive you out. I've got the car. So that week at the closing, Gwen called and she said, honey, I am so sorry. My son-in-law was just killed in a car accident.
Oh, my.
And I have to go to Vermont to be with Nicole. I said, of course you do. She said, I can't do the joke. She said, I would love to, but I can't. And I said, well, yeah, honey, so, So we didn't get to do the joke. But, and then, of course, later, Gwen was up in Vermont with Nicole, and the two sons came down one day and said, Mommy, Grandma's sleeping with her eyes open. She had died in her sleep.
Oh,
Wow.
What a way to go, though.
Yeah.
I want to go that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
And Annie Reinking, the same thing.
Yeah.
She went to visit her brother. She didn't answer the phone. They went to the hotel room, and she was dead in the bed.
Yeah.
Best way to go.
Couldn't-
I want to do it hitting a high note, and then I'll jump into the splits, and if I'm dead, they'll kill me.
So, Leroy, we ask every guest as we wrap it up at the end. I'm a huge Cincinnati sports fan. If there was a sports jersey that you would wear, what would that be, and what would the name on the back be?
Oh, my God.
Right. Here's a
Well,
test for you.
The only one that I knew who, was Johnny Bench.
Well, that's a great one.
Because Johnny, did a little bit of theater, and
Sure.
I met him. He was absolutely charming from Oklahoma.
Yep.
And so I found him a charming, charming man.
You know that Johnny Bench is from Oklahoma. I am very impressed by that. That's well recalled.
Because he fucked one of my friends from Oklahoma. A female. That's how I know.
Oh, that's brilliant. That is brilliant.
And all that closing note, I'll see you in jail.
The NattyCast is proudly brought to you by Pago Lago Productions. The show is hosted by Tim Barker, Rex Stull, and Ron Thomas. Produced and edited by Matthew Lake and associate produced by Ethan Spanja. Special thanks to Sadie Kern at Pop Gun Flow for the graphics and to Brando Triantafilu for the original theme song. feel free to follow us at _nattycast on Instagram or head to our website, thenattycast.com. You can get this show wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next time.